seemed to hang there. At every glance I tried to convince myself the world hadn't stopped, and yet I knew it had. Around me, life continued moving, tick, tick through the motions. Not a thought given, nor a second glance. All I could do was stare off into the sunburnt sky. The plane, carrying the man I loved, was disappearing from view. Nasri had a look best described as awkward. He'd just turned 14 when I met him, short, with thick, black-rimmed glasses framing a round, dimpled face, and wearing shorts 2 sizes too small. He was waiting one cloudless July morning at the bus stop outside my Gongong's provision shop on Algeny Road. I was waiting for a bus too, my white shirt already wet, pasted on my back. As I took a seat inside the bus shelter, 3 Beng wannabes loped past me and surrounded Nasri. One grabbed him by his matchstick arms. He dropped the books he was carrying and quickly bent down to grab them. That was the first time I saw him. Peering for an instant, he looked at me between the guy's scrawny legs. Before, he was then wrenched up by the tallest and ugliest of the 3. They scuffled for a bit and pulled something from Nasri's bag. He didn't make a sound while the boys tore a few pages from a book. A sudden yell from Gongong, who was sweeping away litter outside the shop, pulled the 3 boys from him. Nasri's nose was bleeding. "Jibai!" one of them muttered, displaying the finger. They ran off towards Sims Drive, leaving Nasri grasping his bag tightly as a crimson river blotted his white shirt. I asked where he lived. Again Nasri looked at me, but this time his brown, almond-shaped eyes were sodden in tears. I pulled my handkerchief from my trouser pocket. Mum always said it was good for something, and handed it anxiously to him. He held it to his nose. Red specks dotted the pavement. "You want to get cleaned up? I live here." I gestured to the flat on our 3rd floor of the pastel green block of 125. "I'm wait there," I smiled. He nodded briefly and I led him towards the stairwell. Gong Gong, broom in hand, asked if he was okay, patting him on the shoulder as we passed. Nasri just kept his head down, not a word spoken. Ma was leaving for work when we got to the flat. A bloodied Malay boy standing at the front door was not something she expected that morning. "Make sure you get cleaned up," she cautioned, "and tell Mr. Lee why you're late. I'll write a note tonight," she added, rushing out the gated door like clockwork. She'd be there 1 minute before they arrived, and not even this change of events would deter her. I led Nasri to the bathroom and handed him a towel before sliding the door, leaving it slightly ajar. I walked a few steps. Then on impulse, I stopped and hovered there, listening, not sure if I should do more. I heard him sniffing and washing the blood from his face. Then the bathroom filled with the drum of the shower hitting against the tiles. A force stirred in me, and a lump formed in my throat as I edged hesitantly towards the door. I was confused by this urge to see him. "I just want to see if he's okay," I reasoned. Placing one eye near the opening, I gulped as I saw Nasri standing in the mottled light, water flowing over his naked form. He had his back to me, soap lather running down his brown legs, collecting at his toes. I watched, unblinking, as he washed under his arms and between his round buttocks. His skin seemed to glisten. Why was my mouth dry? Nasri turned suddenly, his gaze catching mine. I yanked my head back. "You want me to get the blood off your shirt?" I blurted, feeling winded, my face suddenly hot. There was a pause, then the door slid open a little, and Nasri's wet hand produced his bloodied school shirt. "Thank you," he muttered quietly, and then he closed the door tight. I grabbed 2 chicken baos from Gong Gong's shop and we sat and talked between bites, waiting for the bus. It turned out the Baines wanted answers to a homework test and Nasri, who was somewhat of a nerd, was sure to have most, if not all, the answers correct. Following that fateful morning, we met more often. Funnily enough, Nasri only lived 2 blocks away, just him and his father in a 1-room rental flat. He didn't talk about his father much though, only that he helped out at a mechanics in Ubi. Despite us being at different schools, me at Anglican High and Nasri at Broderick Secondary, we became close. We liked the same movies and read Sandman comics. On Friday nights, Gong Gong would give us money to go to the cinema at Bugis, and we'd use what was left to feast on late-night prata. Nasri also took a liking to Ma's curry noodles, even more so when I was mugging for my O-levels. Though he was nearly 2 years younger, Nasri made up for it in brains, the brains I was missing according to Ma, and he helped me study nearly every evening. One such night as he attempted to explain the logic in algebra, a pulse of electricity ran up my spine, tingling, teasing me. I always felt different with him. And as we went through the examples in my textbook, I rested my arm against his. After my exams, Nasri began staying over. We talked into the early hours about things so irrelevant they escape me now. I remember lying there, watching him sleep one night, his mouth agape, eyes darting beneath eyelids as dreams began. More than 6 months later, the memory of him showering lingered. For weeks, that was all I thought about. It puzzled me. Why did I look at him so? Why did I want to touch him as he lay there? My mouth was dry again, and my stomach felt heavy. Was it something I ate? My angst subsided as sleep took its hold, just as the solemn chants from the nearby mosque called the dawn. Death changed Nasri. His father had been ill for more than a year, and just after he entered Temasek Junior College, Mr. Sapari passed away. I was 19 and doing my national service, perpetually sunburned as a regimental police guard at Tanjung camp. Thankfully, I was granted leave to go to the wake at the mosque in Siko. Gong Gong came along too. I'd not seen him in about 2 months, but Nasri looked different now, like a weight had been lifted clean off him. Maybe it was living in the shadow of his father's sickness. Now he was free. In the past year, he'd grown out of his chubby features and was now taller than me. His hair was cropped army style, but he still wore those same black-rimmed spectacles. We removed our shoes and were led to where the male members were seated. I guess there were only about 20 people there, dressed in white cotton robes. Nasri was talking quietly to an elder. I tried to catch his eye, but he didn't see me. Beyond, Mr. Sapari's white shrouded body lay on the floor. A maroon batik cloth lay across his form. I tried to remember the last time I had seen him, 6 months ago perhaps, before he went into the hospice. Following a prayer, the Imam beckoned Nasri to the pulpit. As the only child, it was he who would speak for his father. As his words echoed through the chamber, I wished my knowledge of Bahasa equated to more than the orders barked at us at camp. All I could do was gaze at him, mesmerized by his beauty. He was so strong, so determined. I suddenly realized everyone's heads were bowed. I quickly followed suit, but not before catching a familiar glance from Nasri. His warm eyes spoke to me in that fleeting moment. I'm okay, they seemed to say. And as my chin rested against my chest, I smiled to myself. I didn't see Nasri for a while after that. He moved into the home of his father's, of a friend in Buduk. My 2-year stint serving the nation kept me at the arse end of Singapore, which made our meetings sporadic and brief. But both of us getting mobile phones made communicating easier. Late one night, while my unit slept, I sent a message to his phone. Thinking of you, night night. I gulped as the message left my phone. Had I gone too far? What was he thinking now? The next morning I checked my phone. A simple smile was his reply. I wasn't surprised when Nasri signed on with the armed forces after his national service. His A-level grades were above average, but the cost of going on to university was daunting. So it was a logical choice for him. I had dropped out of my business course at Singapore Poly and was working at a travel agency on Beach Road. The job sucked, the people sucked, but so did Poly. At least I was getting paid. For my birthday, Nasri said he'd take me out to dinner. My choice. Hard Rock Cafe, I decided. But also planned to go and watch The Sixth Sense, which was supposed to open that week. However, plans went awry. About 3 weeks before, Nasri was told he was going for specialist training in Taiwan, and he wouldn't be back till mid-October. So sorry, brother, he said on the phone. It's okay, we'll catch something else when you're back, I answered, trying to sound like it wasn't a big deal. I ended up seeing the movie with some girls from work. For my birthday, Marc and Gong Gong took me out for the famous black pepper crab in Yunos. But a burger date with Nasri was all I really wanted. Later that night, coming out of the bathroom, I heard a mobile phone chime. One message received, it read. I already knew who it was. Happy birthday. Sorry I couldn't spend it with you. Hope it was a good one. See you soon. Nas. Definitely, I said to myself. And as the lights from the cars below traversed my ceiling, I lay down on my bed. Only one vision filled my mind. A few days after Nasri got back, he sent me a message. Free for makan? Pick you up at 8. Pick me up, I wondered. Sure, see you downstairs, I tapped quickly. The idling grunt of a motorbike greeted me as I arrived at the void deck 2 minutes to 8. Nasri had bought the bike over the weekend and wanted to show it off. Want to go for a ride? He smiled, winking, quoting a line from Contact, one of our favourite sci-fi movies from a couple of years back. He handed me a black helmet. I clambered on and put my arms around him. He revved the bike, and we sped off down Alginine Road towards Geylang. At each gear change, I wrapped my arms around him closer. The electricity in my spine ignited again. We ate dinner at the food centre at Pasir Panjang. Plates of nasi goreng, pandan chicken, sambal stingray, and mugs of sugarcane juice crowded our table. Occasionally, the lights from fishing boats on Keppel Harbour would float by, calm amongst the hubbub of diners filling their bellies. I got a pee, announced Nasri, standing up. He placed a hand across my shoulder. I felt his warmth through my polo tee. Was it him, or the heat from the sambal? I wondered if I should talk to him tonight, about how I felt, what I've felt for so long. Did he feel the same way? My stomach groaned. By now I knew it was never the food. His handphone suddenly buzzed with its monotone ring. I looked in the direction of the toilets. No sign of Nasri. I glanced at the screen. Commanding officer glowed in time with the high-pitched melody. It rang a few more times, then stopped. Someone called for you, I said as Nasri sat down. He took the phone. His eyes widened for a moment. Sorry, I better take this. He smiled and walked off towards the canal. A street lamp inked Nasri's shadow on the pavement. I ordered another sugarcane drink and sucked on the straw tentatively for the next 10 minutes. Why would a CO need to talk for so long? I pondered. He bounced back to the table. Sorry, you want to get out of here? Yeah, sure. Making a left into Lower Delta Road, I knew where we were headed. As we began to ascend Mount Baker's slopes, I held on to Nasri tightly, my chest resting against his broad back. The cool night air licked my face through the helmet. The distant hum of traffic crowded us as we sat on a park bench staring out across the orange globe hovering above the CBD. Across from us, the lights of the cable car blinked in synchronicity. Somewhere in Talakblana, the call song radio was playing. I shifted my gaze slightly and saw the light bouncing off Nasri's eyes, like jewels at the bottom of a deep pool. He was deep in thought, lips pursed. Whatever that call was about, it definitely changed the mood. He caught my gaze and turned to me, his long uniform arm stretched out across the bench behind me. "I'm going away," he said. "East Timor. I'm part of a peacekeeping mission. I volunteered for it and got in." His eyes sparkled with excitement now. "I go in about 2 weeks." I searched for something to say. My heart thumped in my chest and I was short of breath. "How long for?" was all I could come up with. "A year? It's bad there at the moment, so not really sure. You'll have to see in the millennium without me." He squeezed my shoulder affectionately. I sat for a moment in silence, just looking at him, trying to look supportive. My vision suddenly clouded as my eyes began to tear. My lips quivered uncontrollably. I felt a warm tear run down my cheek. Hold back, damn you," I said to myself. I felt like a tidal wave had hit me right across my chest. I breathed deep. Nasri's right thumb was suddenly against my cheek. He softly brushed the tear away. All I could do was look at him, melt into his eyes, and take refuge as tears flowed. He drew closer and placed his lips against my forehead. He held me, his left hand cradling my head, his chest pressing against me. "It's okay, I know." He smiled, those familiar dimples piercing his cheeks. I dropped my head exposed. He took me in his arms as I sobbed. I sat for a while after the plane's lights dissipated through the clouds. I gave up staring at my watch. 2 days later I got a text message from Nasri. He had arrived in the capital, Dili. Less reception once out of the city. Going to West Timor border, all okay. I woke up late on Monday. I had 30 minutes to get to work. No time to shower. I grabbed my phone. One missed call, but no number. Must have been a call from Nasri. I looked at my watch. Dili was 1 hour ahead. Damn. I popped into Gongong's shop to grab a bao for breakfast. He was at the counter with a copy of the Straits Times in his hands. His eyes were glazed over. He motioned towards the front page. Everything stopped. Air fled my lungs. I was in a vacuum, gasping, frozen. All I could do was stare at the newsprint. SAF peacekeepers killed in clash with Timor militia. A familiar gaze looked out at me from a photograph and set amongst the text. The eyes were deep brown and almond-shaped. The same eyes that first met mine at a bus stop 9 years ago.